wonderful world of Disney. We bring you the history of Man on Wheels. And now your host, Walt Disney.
Wheels we use, wheels and more wheels. Have you ever given any thought to what man's life would be like without wheels? Have you ever thought of how many things you use every day in which wheels of some sort play a part? Life without wheels is not only hard to imagine, but almost impossible. Now, we can't tell you when the wheel was invented or who invented it. But in the next few minutes, we're going to tell you a lot of other things about the wheel that everyone should know. In fact, we're even going to bring you a story of a young fellow who, except for one thing, could have been the inventor of the wheel. Maybe I should have said except for two things. The first one, he wasn't very smart. And the second, he just wouldn't listen to the voice of progress. Believe me, he should have. For progress and wheels have been rolling right along together for many a year. But right now, let's get the wheels a-turning backwards. For we're going to start our show by going back, way back in time. Well, now that you know something about the wheel and a bit about a few of its thousands of uses, let's concentrate on one particular thing that never could have been except for the existence of the wheel. That thing is the good old automobile. Now, according to the latest figures, there are 101,288,132 registered motor vehicles in the United States. At least that was the count an hour ago. Now, not counting all the gears and other kinds of wheels used in a car, but just the four that roll along the road, that means there are 405,152,528 wheels pounding the streets, freeways, and expressways of our country. And that many wheels, carrying that many cars, means problems. In fact, so many problems that a short time ago I asked some of our artists here at the studio to give these problems a bit of thought. And maybe we could come up with a few solutions. You know, artists are very talented people. But some of their ideas, well, you see what you think. Here's one suggesting separate highways for women drivers. For an extra lane, thinner cars could ride the white line. For important business conferences, a wider car is proposed. Some drivers feel that cars should be equipped with anti-passing devices. Some motorists demand arched boxcars for stalled freight trains. For on-the-spot traffic analysis, the elevator seat. And for the hopelessly trapped motorist, the portable automobile. Here is the motorist's dream come true, the disposable highway vehicle. A mobile car wash would provide complete service en route. To combat driving fatigue, we might welcome the highway slumber bus. Swift justice for the traffic violator. Arrested, tried, and sentenced, all in a package deal. As I said before, artists are very talented people. But for some reason, those ideas just didn't seem to be the right answers to our driving problems. However, we're not ones to give up easily around here. If these new ideas weren't too practical, maybe the answer was to show the drivers the correct way to use the facilities already available. So it was back to the drawing board. This time, the results were different. In fact, so different that I want every one of you, be you driver, non-driver, or even a backseat driver, to sit up straight and pay attention to what you're about to see and hear. You can learn something that might save your life.
When the first settlers landed in America, it was a vast, unexplored wilderness. Trails soon appeared, of course, and eventually became tracks or wagon roads during the westward expansion. And these finally developed into a system of highways with the coming of the automobile in the 20th century. But in just the past few decades, a new kind of road has begun to spread across the nation. It is called thruway, or parkway, or expressway, or freeway, but the names all mean the same thing. We shall call it freeway, but whatever the name, it is now a part of our way of life. Freeways are already proving invaluable, particularly around large population centers. But they do pose some special problems for the millions of drivers who use them. Freeways are designed for the high-speed movement of great numbers of automobiles, and when used properly, are safer than ordinary surface streets. 2.5 times safer, in fact. But the freeway is a new and different world. A world which requires a new and different kind of driving by those who use it. Motorists here are bound together by certain practical rules and courtesies necessary for mutual protection. And any individual who does not or will not recognize this is a menace to everyone. However, such drivers can usually be separated into certain types, which can be illustrated by a few rather extreme examples. This specimen we shall call Driverius timidicus, the timid driver, a shy and retiring fellow. Usually overcautious, he can be a definite menace because he does not adjust to freeway driving demands. For an example, observe the way he enters a freeway on which the traffic is heavy but moving well. Mr. T proceeds carefully along the entrance ramp, which of course he should do. Now he tries to keep one eye on the car ahead of him and the other on his rear view mirror to look for oncoming traffic. But he doesn't really trust mirrors, and he finds it confusing anyway. So he slows down as he would at an ordinary street intersection and takes a good look. The spaces seem very small. So, again, as he would at an intersection, he stops to wait for a big opening. This often comes as a surprise to drivers behind him and can result in a sort of boxcar effect. Now, while Timidicus watches for that big opening, let's go back a moment and see what he should have done. With the entrance ramp clear ahead, he should have been picking up speed to begin to match that of cars in the traffic lanes. His rear view mirror, plus a quick glance back, would have covered any blind spots, and he could have made final speed adjustments in the merging or acceleration lane. Now, showing firm intention, he would need only a slight change in speed, faster or slower, to slip easily into a small space. Also, the driver behind is now able to be courteous and let him in. But getting back to Mr. T, he has increased his own problem enormously by stopping unnecessarily. To go from a full stop to freeway speed, say about 55 miles per hour, would require over 500 feet, roughly twice the length of a football field, before he can merge safely. And Mr. T must start at precisely the right instant, or the gap will close too quickly, and he will be in danger of a rear-end collision. the approaching driver will be forced to slow down. And this can mushroom into a chain reaction, causing the boxcar effect again, this time far down the line of traffic. But again, what about Timidicus, who at last finds himself on the freeway?
Blue.
High speed makes him nervous and apprehensive, so he drives slowly. If he keeps to the right and doesn't go too slow, this causes little real trouble. But all too often, he strays into the fast traffic lanes. Mr. T, convinced that people shouldn't drive so fast anyway, believes he is driving safely and has no idea that he may be creating a problem. But now, drivers behind him are forced to slow down quickly to avoid a collision, or rapidly change lanes, which causes others to slow down. This can result in the usual chain reaction and boxcar effect. And innocent drivers often pay because Mr. T does not adjust to the freeway. The delay and confusion that follows invariably frays nerves and tempers and reveals another freeway menace we shall call Motoramus fidgetus, the impatient motorist.
Gall dang people that camp on the freeway. Come on, get going.
Members of this species are usually excitable,
What's the matter up there? Move it, come on, move it.
explosive in nature,
Get a horse.
or highly competitive in spirit.
Oh, yeah, well, the same to you, Buster.
Mr. F usually displays an avid desire to get ahead, and when free to do so, is an habitual lane changer. Of course, a lane change is sometimes necessary, and when it is, a signal should always be given first. Next, a quick look to cover the blind spot. Then speed up and move in well ahead of the car in the next lane. Freeway pros will cooperate by dropping back a bit, for they know that courtesy is a practical rule here. But Fidgetus, in his impatience, will cut sharply in front of other drivers, forcing them to use their brakes. The same chain reaction often results. And Mr. F's progress can sometimes be measured by the path of destruction he leaves behind. But Mr. F occasionally finds himself unable to pass the car ahead. And now, in irate frustration, he is apt to move up bumper to bumper, regardless of the speed.
Come on, get going, get out of my way.
Unfortunately, Mr. F doesn't realize he's driving a potential engine of destruction more powerful than the largest battering ram ever to breach a castle wall. To explain, let us pause a moment, return him to his car, and see some freeway facts of life. Let's say Mr. F is traveling 60 miles per hour. A figure equal to about half the number of miles per hour added to that number gives the speed in feet per second. Thus, at 60 miles per hour, 90 feet is approximately the distance Mr. F's car travels in just 1 second. On a football field, it would move about 30 yards every second and go from goal line to goal line in just over 3 seconds. But now let's go down to the field for a little demonstration in which Mr. F himself is the subject. As he watches the scoreboard, a signal suddenly flashes. Now let's see what happens inside Mr. F. First, his eyes receive the signal and transmit it to certain centers in his brain. There it is identified, analyzed, calculated, and computed. And an action decision may be handed down.
Stop! Hit the brake!
The message goes out to the legs and feet, and finally the brakes are applied. If we run through it again with a stopwatch, we find all this takes about 1 second.
Stop! Hit the brake!
Now, if Mr. F crosses the goal line at 60 miles per hour just as a stop signal flashes, he will travel a minimum of 30 yards before he touches his brakes. And even with good brakes and dry pavement, he will still cover another 70 yards to the opposite goal before finally stopping. So, Mr. F was actually preceded by a sort of danger zone made up of his reaction distance plus his braking distance. Now, imagine he's on the freeway, a bit behind and to one side of a car identical to his. Let's go to slow motion and suppose that for some reason, the leading driver decides to stop and applies his brakes here. Mr. F reacts as soon as he sees the flashing taillight ahead, but he cannot apply his brakes until here, past the point where the first driver began to stop. The braking distances are the same, and Mr. F comes to a halt this much farther along. Obviously, had Mr. F been in the same lane, there would have been a jarring rear-end collision. And possibly even others. When behind another car on the freeway, drop back as speed increases to allow for reaction distance. Under good conditions, the usual rule of thumb is 1 car length for every 10 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour, 6 car lengths. When road conditions are poor, make it a bit more. Now, back to Fidgetus. Does he drop back as speed increases? No. He's still bumper chasing. Is he alert to movements several cars ahead of him, anticipating possible emergencies? No. He's left himself no margin of safety because he... watch it! Not now! Look out for the car ahead! It's stopping! Even if the impact speed is down to 30 miles per hour, the result for Mr. F could be like driving off the roof of a 3-story building. Last but not least, we have the annoying type, called neglectorus maximus, the inattentive driver. Often Mr. N is simply hypnotized by the drone of traffic and carried off to dreamland. Then again, he may suddenly decide that the freeway is an ideal place to study his math. You may see him enjoying a second cup of coffee, or even getting in a quick shave while driving. Of course, his favorite pastime is conversation, especially with someone in the back seat.
Yeah, just picked her up this morning. Flat out, she'll put down anything on the road. Oh,
Neglectorus can be a problem to others, even when not directly involved, because he's usually a rubbernecker. And if some mishap slows traffic on one side of the freeway, he will jam the other side simply by being curious. And Mr. N is particularly careless regarding signs and directions. Thus, he is usually almost past his exit when he notices it, has to change lanes quickly to make it, and there's the same old chain reaction. Finally, Mr. N often neglects his speedometer and forgets he is moving at freeway speeds as he re-enters the world of surface streets.
oh, shop.
There are other freeway problems too, and they often start right here, off the freeway. Of course, there is a certain type of motorist usually involved. There he is now, a nice enough fellow, but the type who never takes care of things. He never seems to learn. So let's call him Stupidicus Ultimus.
Ha! What a worrywart. Look at the old fuss budget.
He is often rather contemptuous of anyone who takes such simple precautions as walking around the car for a look at the tires. Mr. S hasn't looked at his tires since he bought the car, so of course they've been run ragged. He hasn't had the motor or brakes checked either. If the car runs, he simply drives it off without a thought. Stupidicus just doesn't realize that on the freeway the demands on every part of his car are much greater. A slick, threadbare tire is usually the first thing to go.
Uh-oh, there goes my tire.
Of course, this can cause Stupidicus to lose control of his car. But if it doesn't, that worn-out tire suddenly becomes very precious to him, and he will actually stop quickly in a traffic lane. Of course, this is the worst thing he could possibly do. On the freeway, seemingly minor things, unusual little noises or vibrations, should not be ignored. A carelessly tightened wheel working loose, a rising temperature gauge, a rattling hood latch slightly damaged in a parking mishap, can mean real trouble at freeway speeds.
Uh-oh, there goes my tire.
Stupidicus is the only one to blame for this predicament, but he has other ways of causing himself trouble too. For example, the way he puts things in his car. See how carelessly he piles them in the back seat, never thinking that in a sudden stop...
Oh, ouch! Oh, ouch!
every one can become a dangerous projectile, threatening his life and limbs. But even worse is the way he loads a trailer. He usually piles too much on and then ties it down very carelessly. Naturally, at freeway speeds, part of the load is soon distributed along the way. This adds to other carelessly scattered litter, all of which costs millions of dollars a year to clean up. But there are often more immediate and far more serious results. Another cause of trouble for Stupidicus is his unreasoning belief that it is most economical to buy just enough gasoline for immediate needs.
2 gallons, bud. That ought to get me there.
Without any reserve fuel for possible delays or miscalculations, eventually there can only be one result.
Uh-oh, I'm out of gas. Doggone gas gauge must be busted.
Of course, Stupidicus does sometimes manage to get his car safely out of the traffic lanes after a breakdown. But even then, he often lives up to his name by getting out on the wrong side. Or sometimes trying to make repairs while actually standing in a traffic lane. Sometimes he will even bet his life in a foot race from the center divider to the side. Once in a while, in spite of all precautions, a breakdown will occur. This is a serious matter on a busy freeway, but the dangers can be lessened by following a few common sense rules. First of all, remember that you are in a flowing stream of traffic that cannot be stopped quickly. So if trouble develops, look around and plan your moves. There is nearly always time for that. Next, be sure to give clear signals of your intention before doing anything. Now move carefully but firmly to the side, the outside preferably, if it can be made safely and in time. Almost any driver will be courteous enough to drop back if he realizes you're in trouble. Once off to the side, get well out of the adjacent traffic lane. Get out of your car only if it can be done safely, and even then, stay as far from the moving cars as you can. If it can be done safely, a raised hood is a rather universally recognized distress signal. But warning devices, such as flares or reflectors, should be carried also. 3 or 4 in a bundle secured under the front seat. Always look out for spilled gasoline or other fire hazards before lighting flares, and set them carefully. Set at least one about 50 paces back on the edge of the road, even a bit farther if stopped over a hill or around a curve. Another near the car is recommended, and any such devices are especially vital at night. It's easy to see that good mechanical condition is essential, but there is something else equally as important: the driver. Aside from his car, the condition of the driver, mentally and physically, is vital too. For example, he will put in a hard day's work at the office, getting ready to leave on a vacation. Maybe even attend a little farewell party.
Happy vacation. Have a good time. Oh, goodbye. See you in 2 weeks.
And start out at the end of the day, planning to drive 300 or 400 miles without a stop. Inevitably, fatigue sets in, but Stupidicus keeps going because he doesn't realize the danger. Let us pause and see what he's up against if he has to stop suddenly. Remember that for a driver to see something, decide what to do, and then take action, usually takes from 3/4 to a full second. Brakes are applied only after that time. When fatigued, a driver may take 2 or 3 times as long before using his brakes. Of course, alcohol can make this problem even worse. But in addition, an intoxicated driver, confronted by an emergency, will often use very poor judgment and take unnecessary chances. Another problem on long trips is that the constant speeds and steady hum of the engine tend to subject Stupidicus, or any other driver, to a kind of freeway hypnosis. This is a serious hazard, but it can be overcome by occasional stops off the road for a moment's rest and refreshment. Finally, Stupidicus doesn't seem to realize that adverse weather conditions always exaggerate and intensify any freeway problem, and that extra care must be taken at such times. He must learn that planning ahead is essential to safe, efficient freeway driving. And he must not forget that this applies to short trips as well as long ones. Many common freeway problems can be avoided if a simplified sort of checklist is followed before getting on the freeway, whether to go across the city or across the country. This checklist should include the car, fuel, water, tires, brakes, engine condition, and seat belts. It should include the driver. Rest beforehand. Be alert. No alcohol. Rest stops on long trips. And it should include the freeway. Traffic conditions, weather conditions, knowing where to get on, where to go, and where to get off. And there is one more item to be included always. One for which there is no substitute. Plain common sense.
Yeah, just plain common sense.
Crash, boom, bang. Well, I hope we solved some of your driving problems. And now I suppose you can't wait to get out your car and try out some of our suggestions.